Hey, welcome to the Eyes on Jesus podcast with Drew and Tim. This is part two of a two-parter. So this is
Yeah.
the end, which is really exciting. And we're diving in to an article that is talking about trends in 2024. So these are church trends. These are predictions of what might happen, what could happen. And as Christians, as church leaders, it's important for us to keep our eyes on this and recognize, okay, as we're moving through the year, what do I need to be aware of? Not just from a perspective of judging your church, but like how can you be involved and how can you help and how can you maybe see like where your ministry fits into this, where your life fits into this in order that you're influencing and making everyone around you better. So for those that missed part one, Tim, why don't you give everyone just a little bit of background on how you came across the article, where the article's from, and then let's dive into, I think there's seven trends that we're talking about. We've already hit the first four, and we'll lead off with number five. So go for that.
Yeah, this is on Carey Nieuwhof's blog. I'll put it in the show notes. And he does this every year, church trends for the year. And I've never really followed him before, but I do listen to his podcast. I love it. It's for leaders, also
Yeah,
not just church leaders, but leaders in general. So we definitely check that out. Carey, if you're listening, I know you listen to the show. You're welcome to come on
that's right.
anytime you want. So
Let's go.
um, the ones we talked about last week would encourage you to listen to them. It was a great conversation, but just real quick to get you caught up to speed on number one, trends for, and these are disruptive trends for 2024. These aren't just general trends you'll see in churches. These are trends
Right.
that will disrupt the church in 2024. The first one is the stable church has become an endangered species. Number two is millennials are the new core of your church. Number three is that Gen Z will start to reshape the church. And number four is that discipleship has a growing digital component. So we talked through
Mm,
those. We're going to finish
mm.
off today with the last three. And then Drew and I are going to talk about some of our thoughts on trends that we're going to see in the church. So, number five, now that we're caught up, partisan extremism will continue to fuel short term church growth, but not long term church growth. And so this one is awesome. We just did a political podcast actually talking about, I think it was, I don't know how many ago. It wasn't that long ago. So I would encourage you to check that out because we
Yeah, it
said,
wasn't that
here
long
we
ago.
go again. We're in an
Yep.
election year. Here we
Sometimes.
go again. How do we as Christians respond to an election year? Did we
Right.
learn anything from 2020? I pray to God we have, because that was a brutal year of extremism. And so
It really was.
this this trend is talking about churches that will plant their stake upon a political party
Right.
or idea or candidate. And it's one thing to support somebody, and it's another thing to, make it your entire focus. And when you do that, you run the risk of alienating 50% of your population because you're so focused on the person you're trying to reach. And the thing with Jesus is that he is applicable to 100% of the population. And so
Very
we're
well
not going
said.
to overcome political barriers. I think that, like we talked about in the political episode, it is important to know what you believe and to care about real societal issues. And I think the Bible is very clear on many of them. But at the same time, to understand that the people coming to your building might be of a different political party than you are. And so, how do you reach them with the gospel, not reach them with the candidates?
Right.
Um, that's a big distinction.
And it's so important because you're right. We lose 50% of who we're alienating. And on top of that, I'll just tell you from experience in being in churches where pastors did this, it doesn't work.
Hmm.
It just, it doesn't work. You'll get claps.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's what you're about, go with it and you'll get claps.
And you
You'll
might see a
get,
short-term growth like this talked about. You may not
yeah.
get for a
Oh,
period
you
of
will.
time during the election year, oh, this church
Yeah.
is supporting this, let's go there, right? But what happens
Yeah.
after?
Totally. What are you going to do next year? Who's
Mhm.
going to be your, and that's the thing. Then you got to find a new enemy. And
Mhm.
we only have one. We only have one.
Yep.
And so there's no point in pointing the finger at anybody else from stage. This kind of stuff, man, this is why I believe people have a tough time trusting the church, trusting leaders. It's hard to get on stage and tell everybody, love everybody, and then just absolutely shout someone down.
Mhm.
That's a really tough line to straddle. So in this situation, in a political climate, you should start getting your people prepared now. The important thing in these kinds of situations is to already make up your mind how you're going to respond before you have to respond. That way you don't do it from a reactionary state, but
Right.
a place that, you have proactively thought through and prayed about, and recognize that you're not going to change anyone's mind because you posted something on social media, or change anyone's mind because you said something from the pulpit. To this day, I've never had anybody come up to me or come up to anybody I know and be like, you know what? I used to be a Democrat, but hearing what you said today, I'm a Republican.
Right. You've
People make up their
uprooted.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if they're Christian, you encourage them to use Christian values and use the Bible to filter their decision of who they vote for through. If they're not, I don't know how you can hold them accountable. I don't know how you can be mad at somebody who doesn't call Jesus Savior for doing what they think is right, just because you think is wrong. And here's the big news flash: Republican or Democrat, both of those fall short of the Bible. So you can vote Republican and think that's the Christian thing to do. I could tear apart the Republican Party with biblical values. You could vote Democrat because you think that's the Christian way to do. I could tear apart the Democratic Party with the Bible. So it really doesn't matter how you vote, but it is your right to vote. And I would encourage you, if you are a Christian, to do it through a biblical view. And that's really where it stops.
Right.
That's really where it stops. But if you're like, gosh, man, I mean, it's going to happen, right? Like
Yeah.
it's going to happen. We're going to have these pastors get on stage and talk about you should vote for Trump, or you
Yeah.
should vote Republican, and look, I get it. It's easy to look at the Democratic Party and be like, abortion, you know, LGBTQ community, like you could, acceptance across everyone, more than two genders, or gender identity and
Yeah.
phobias and all this. And so I get it. Don't think that I'm just numb to it, listeners. Like, I do understand. I do get it. But man, could you imagine if someone who voted as a Democrat and was planning to vote as a Democrat this year walked into a church and maybe they had some hope in Jesus? They just
Mhm.
weren't quite there yet. And some pastor was like, if you vote a certain way, like you're demonic, or you're a terrible person, or you're not.
Yeah.
Man, that person will never trust the church.
Yeah, those topics are important to even talk about during your sermons and stuff. But when you start idolizing a person, and when you start, we talked about in that episode too of, prophecies for the year, when you start talking about the
Yeah,
chosen one, and when you start talking about all these things that are just, it's going to make people that, oh, yeah, I believe in that person. I'm going to vote for that person. That sounds good. It's going to make those people kind of a self fulfilling prophecy, if you will. But it's also going to, I think, there's so much extremism. And when you look at this, there's a Duke University research that shows 6% of the radical positions on social media drive 73% of the traffic. So 6% of the radical positions drive 73% of the traffic. Most people are moderate, is what Carrie Newhoff is saying. Most people are moderate. Most people are like, I really don't care. I'll vote. This is my party that I will vote along these lines because there's no better option. But at the same time, I don't care about this extreme
I
nonsense
cannot believe
that you
that's that.
see. Yeah, just go on X for a while and start seeing the insanity on there and the conspiracy theories. My
Bro,
goodness.
X is dude, just search a topic, any topic. It
Any
doesn't
topic.
matter. Any topic. Just search it. And within the first 6 tweets, you're gonna be like, what?
Yeah.
You're gonna lose your mind.
Yeah.
Unreal.
So we really have to be careful of
Oh
that
man.
going into a political year, politically charged year. I think along the moderate lines, along the Bible is a blend of both, kind of a walk between. But the Bible's not a political party or ideology. It's a
No, it
kingdom.
certainly isn't.
It's a kingdom of God, which is across all countries, all nationalities, all political divides. And with that, there's also the something to be cautious of is we're in America, it's the nationalistic leanings. And this is a tough, and I'm curious your thoughts, Drew, because we've not talked about it, but I'm curious your thoughts on, on one hand, we love America, we love the freedom that's here, we love the religious freedom, we love this country. But on the other hand, it can get extreme on flags all over the front of the church and, singing patriotic stuff when it's not 4th of July. And it can get a little extreme too when you're there for God. And so what are your thoughts on that?
Right. How far should we go?
Yeah, what feels good and what feels gross when you see some of the stuff that people do with that?
What feels good is pointing people to Jesus. If you know Jesus, you have everything. If you don't know Jesus, you have nothing.
Right.
And I think too many times when people are arguing a political party, this is for my Christians that are listening. Too many times when people are arguing with a political party, they try to point to their own political party. That's not going to fix anything.
Yeah.
Like you, you try having a conversation with somebody who doesn't believe in Jesus and believes that there's more genders than just male and female. It's a lost cause.
Mm,
And I'm not saying like it's a lost cause because they're stupid. I'm saying it's a lost cause because they don't know Jesus.
yeah.
And we spend the majority of our time arguing with people who don't have the first step. And we're trying to show them step 10. That makes us ignorant. Understand, like we're trying to call out someone's ignorance. That makes us ignorant.
Right.
So what I like is pointing people to Jesus. How should I vote? Do you know Jesus? Get to know Jesus, and then he'll let you know how to vote.
Yeah.
Like that's what I like. The flags and the patriotic songs and the God bless Americas and the man, we don't do any of that, bro.
Mhm.
I'll tell you right now, if we could live in any country right now, and this, I'm gonna do church. I'm gonna do church. So
The
I'm
gospel
certainly
covers all
grateful.
countries, like I said, it's not just an American
That's
gospel.
right. So
Um,
I'm certainly grateful for our country. I mean, my grandfather served this country in World War II, fought on a Navy destroyer, was part of the Pearl Harbor cleanup crew. This man has seen a lot and been through a lot and has lost a lot of people defending my freedom, my family's freedom. And part of that freedom is your ability to vote. Also, part of that freedom is freedom of religion.
yeah.
And don't put freedom to vote before religion. I guarantee you that if I asked my grandfather, what's more important to you, my freedom to vote or my freedom to go to church? He built the church with his bare hands. He'd 100% say, go to church.
Yeah.
So, I think I get it. Like, separation church and state, but we love America and all that stuff. And it's biblical to love your country. Yeah, man, I think America's a great place, but like church is a whole nother thing. And so to
Yeah.
me, I don't think you're going to have a service where we have the American flag up front and I'm preaching between two American flags. I just don't think it's going to happen.
Mhm. Yeah, for me, I think that, you know, I love America. I love the fact that I don't wanna change that, under God and our money. I wish we still said the pledge in school because that's what I grew up with. I wish prayer was
Yep,
an
me
option
too.
in school, not forced. All
That's
those
right.
things I wish for this country. But at the same time, I think there's a distinction between what I do and how I support America and what flag I have out in the front of my yard versus what we do in church and what I'm comfortable with in
Hmm.
church. And there's variations on this. I'm comfortable with maybe a social media post on a holiday. God bless America.
Hmm.
I'm
Absolutely.
comfortable with praying for America from the stage on a
Yep.
holiday,
Yep.
praying for our leaders. That's about it. That's about the extent.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
I'm with back up and stand with everything you just said. But again, like that just it's icky when it becomes the focus, man. It's
yeah.
just a little gross, it's a little gross.
All right, bring us to our next one.
All right. AI adoption will become normative in growing churches. This one's grown on me. I'll be honest. What are your thoughts on this? Are you using AI currently? What are you doing?
You know what? I'm using it and I don't know I'm using it because it's integrated already in so many of the apps I use for posting on social media or creating
Totally.
content, even on how I edit this podcast. There's a
Yep.
thing that says ask AI, and you can ask AI different things once you're done editing. And one of those is create a social media post, create a YouTube description, create all this different stuff. It does even like the chapters. It would take me forever to know like when a chapter ends and starts, but
Hmm.
AI does it in seconds.
Yeah.
And so I'm not actually going on to Chat GPT specifically and asking questions. I have and I do, but it's not too normal. But it's how this will change is it's just going to be a part of your life. You're going to start using
Yep.
Microsoft Word and not even know that AI program is in there and you're using it. And we did This is one of our first, I forgot what episode it was on GPT. We talked about it and the impact for churches. And what this is saying is that it's going to grow because 19% of church leaders say they use it on a daily or weekly basis. 62% say they rarely or never use AI in their work.
Yeah.
And so, is that a good thing? Should that grow? Should 100% of churches use it? That's really a big question mark for the future. How is this going to impact our life?
Yeah, I think you got to be careful of how you use it with anything. I mean,
Hmm.
just with anything, right? I remember a pastor I knew in Georgia way back in the day. He used to go online to YouTube, and there were a couple pastors. He would look at their sermons, and he would do that sometimes for like creative ideas, creative energy, maybe like reference some things they said. Well, that turned into, I've had a busy week. Let me just use their sermon. So you gotta get, like with anything, right? If something's easy, you just got to be careful and disciplined with it. So I'll be honest. I use AI every single week, not as it pertains to my sermon, but I copy after I've written out my sermon. I've copied the entire thing, and then I paste it into Chat GPT, and I say, "Here's my sermon. I need 3 social media posts geared towards Facebook, along with hashtags that will encourage people to come to church Sunday based on this message."
Hmm.
And within 30 seconds, I have 3.
Yep.
You know who's not good at making social media posts about themselves because it kind of feels weird telling people how great my sermon is going to be? I don't like doing that.
Yeah.
So AI has been incredibly helpful to me. And it's actually gotten me to a point where I'm not there yet, but I'm thinking in the future about creating an entire AI identity through our social media so that I can just copy and paste exactly what AI says instead of trying to make it my own, because I don't even like doing that. And I can copy directly what AI says, put it into social media, and then put like a little picture or put like a little post that says like, AI bot says, or we'll name our AI bot something, and they'll be our AI bot social media manager. And so every time you see something with them, from them, that it's an AI generated thing and not something someone has written. So I've even gotten to the point where I'm thinking about leveraging it for that. That's mostly where I've leveraged it so far. There was one week I couldn't come up with a sermon title, and I put the scripture in and I said, "This is the sermon title I'm thinking about going with. Do you have anything?" They gave me one. I said, "That's too long." They gave me another one. I said, "Do you have any more like that?" They gave me 10 more, and I went with number like 8 or 9. So yeah, there's been some moments where I use it. Sometimes you just get creatively blocked, and so you dive into it. And then I don't like talking about myself and what, something I've produced is going to do something for you. Like, I don't like getting into that, but sometimes I need to post stuff on social media. So I use AI.
Yeah. And for people that are completely against this, I would just ask you, do you use Google? Do you use other
Yeah. What do you
resources
think Google is?
that help you do your job better, right? That's all this is. It can be abused just like anything can be abused. But if it's used as a resource to help you through, I mean, churches in general need help. They don't have a ton of full-time people that can just, crank out this
Some just have one.
content. Some have one. There
Some
you go.
just have one.
And so this could be an awesome tool to help with social media. It could be an awesome tool to help with, content creation in other
Yep.
ways. We talked about online discipleship last week. It could help with that. There could be a lot of ways that this is used, but Carrie Newhoff says that the AI train has left the station, meaning that
Yeah.
like it or not, it's here. It's only going to continue to grow. It's only going to continue to be used more and more in apps that you already use, and you won't even know you're doing it.
And if
So,
you want to think outside the box and challenge yourself as a leader, go to Chat GPT and build your profile and say, "My name's this. I go to this church. We have this many people," and be honest with it. It's hard to do, but be honest with it and just say, "I'm struggling to promote growth. Do you have any ideas of what might work?"
mhm,
And get humbled by having 15 ideas thrown at you in 90 seconds and at least 5 of them being something that's good and you're not doing.
yeah,
Allow it to humble you. Yeah.
yeah. There's a joke with my senior pastor at my church is, he always like, "That sounds really good, but did ChatGPT write it? Because if it did, then I hate it." It's just a
I love that.
so
That's funny.
the And then he was thinking about a new sermon series for February, and so it was like, while you're thinking, here's 10 ideas that ChatGPT came up with, and just to trigger him because they were just very basic. And so
I
he's like,
love it.
no, absolutely not. But
Love it.
so
Love
anyway,
it.
there needs to be somebody, I think, sounding this bell at your church, at your business, because like I said, it's going to be one of those things where normally in the past, church is a late adopter on technology. We just
Yep.
are. We think that things are demonic when they're not. And, I'm sure someone thought TVs were back when those first came out, and any change, I
100%.
mean, music. Oh my goodness. Obviously, you don't want it to write your full sermon for you. You don't want it to be misused. But at the same time, people have been able to do that for years now. There's sites where you can actually just download sermons and slap your name on it if you wanted to. So it's really nothing different as far as that goes. To go like 5 years down the road with this, I think a lot of maybe small part-time jobs that churches have had or businesses have had might go away. There's a lot of ways that I think apps will continue to grow and be used and be, I mean, I constantly I have different apps like CapCut and Captions and Descript. And every time I go into these things, it seems like something is getting updated or changed or making my life a little easier. I remember not that long ago, I had to do captions all manually. That's just an easy thing that has changed and you don't even think about it anymore. And so, anyway, we'll see.
We'll see.
All right, number 7, a new kind of megachurch pastor will continue to emerge. So, this one's talking about we've seen a lot of scandals, we've seen a lot of megachurch pastors come and go. Many have led well and stepped back quietly after decades of ministry. But what this is talking about, that a new leader will emerge that is younger, that caters more to Gen X. We talked about that last week, how they have a
Yep.
lot to say, that we need to include them in what we're doing. And so you won't just see the 60-plus-year-old megachurch pastor. You won't just see maybe the same type of teaching approach. There might be a different focus on community. There might be a different focus on outreach or, I mean, say what you want about Michael Todd, but he's someone that brings people in with his analogies and his things he does from stage, which might seem a little crazy, but it's great for views and it draws people in to see, hey, what else is this guy going to say? And hopefully they hear about Jesus,
Or what else will he spit on? Totally.
oh my gosh. Yeah. So anyway, what do you think is going to change so obviously we're not mega pastors. You worked with mega church pastors. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Yeah. I think the reason a new kind of megachurch pastor is evolving is because these are the pastors that we all wish we were led by. I think there are a lot of people who have spent a lot of years in ministry. And here's the thing. That's not a knock. That this is how we evolve as human beings. Anybody you're around, you should be trying to learn something from them. Sometimes you learn something good, sometimes you learn something bad. Neither one, is better than the other. Like when it comes to leadership, like what an opportunity you have to learn how to not lead well and how to lead well, right? It's great opportunities to learn either way. So I think that a lot of people that have served in ministry for a long time, I think what they're finally doing is going, you know what? Now that I'm in a leadership position, I know who I'm not going to be like. And I think we've just seen too many mistakes. That's one thing social media has done. We've just seen too many pastors mess up. And so what we're recognizing is that this is not sustainable.
Mhm.
Having one person do everything is not sustainable. Having one person leave their family for hours on end every single day, every evening, every night, not put their kids to bed doesn't end well for the marriage, doesn't end well for the relationship with the family. And so I think people are just starting to see this and go, hey, what if we took a different approach? What if it was more not so focused on me, but focused on us collectively as a group, as a community, as a staff? What if it wasn't just about my talent? What if it was about your talent and my talent? What if we both contributed? What if we saw each other as equals and not, I'm the lead pastor, bow down to me, I'm basically Jesus? What if we saw it differently? And I think people are finally doing that. And I don't think it's because, I don't think it's because there's some big, I get it. This article is to show that there's a shift, and I guess it is generationally. But I think Craig Groeschel is a phenomenal leader. Okay. But let's not confuse what he's built. Nobody knows another name on that staff. We do because we're in it. But nobody thinks Life Church and thinks of, Bobby Greenwald before they think of Craig Rochelle. They think Craig Rochelle,
Yeah.
Elevation Church, Stephen Furtick. Like, this is what you do. Transformation Church, Mike Todd. Like, this is what we do, right? But there are some pastors out there that are not as prolific and not as polarizing.
Mhm.
And they're coming up. And what we're finding is they're way more group focused. They know they don't know everything. And they recognize what they're good at and they do that. And then they recognize what they're not so good at and they don't do that.
Yeah.
And I think it's awesome. I'll tell you this, I'm good at giving money away. I love giving money away. I'm not good at running church finances. I'm not. So we have people who do that. Oh, who would have thought?
Right.
Who would have thought? That's what we do. You know what else? I am good at preaching on Sunday morning. I'm good at communicating. I feel like I'm good at that. You know what I'm not good at? I'm not the guy you want sitting next to you at a hospital when you're like just looking for 3 hours of time with someone.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy. It's not that I think it's awkward. It's that I don't like silence. And when I don't know what to say, I might say something stupid. I'm not the guy. So I have a whole group of people, elders, care team, prayer team, that reach out to people. I still reach out to people. I still try to care for people, but I'm not really big on the whole doing house calls and doing hospital visits and things like that. I have done that, but it's not like, it's just not, it drains me. It's just, and I'm not great at it. You don't want me there. So I'll send you a video. I'll send you a video that's like a minute and a half long and I'll talk to you. But, let somebody else who's a wonderful, just wonderful care pastor that just does empathy really well, let them express that gift because it's impossible to find a pastor. You're not going to find this unicorn that can speak, care, empathize, make awesome social media content, do small groups, organize systems and processes, speak vision, run guest experience, be committed to excellence, do worship, know music, build teams. Oh, and he's also going to do like finances and he's also, dude, come on.
Yeah.
It's crazy, but that's what we've built. For a lot of churches, we built that first and every decision goes through one dude. And it's different now and it's good. It's a good change.
Yeah.
It makes me think that we're going to have more longevity, which is great.
Yeah. This article talks about future megachurch leaders will be less top down and more consensus based, which is what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Less
Yeah.
interested in popularity and platform and more in local ministry. I love that.
Yep.
Less fixated on size and more fixated on health. Ironically, with that focus, many are now leading a church larger than their predecessor. And I find it interesting too. I hear Carrie's podcast, other podcasts where leaders come on and
Sure.
they're like the biggest church in, the East Coast or something. And I'm like, wow, and I look up their church and it's huge. And I've never heard of this guy. Right. And it's not like I have this, but I have kind of a beat on people that are out
Sure.
there and leaders. I've had a lot of
Sure.
leaders on my podcast. And so, I respect, the fact that people can be a mega church pastor and not be all about them,
Yeah.
not try to build their own, huge thing. And I don't care if they write books, but, a lot of times you see them just push their own stuff and, wear
Yep.
trendy stuff and hang out with celebrities. And oftentimes that will fall and fail. And then
Yep.
you put all your eggs in one person. And then when that person has a scandal or falls, which many have done, what
Yep.
happens to your church? And that's not a good place to be in. So, yep.
That's how it goes. Okay. So that's all 7. And that's great. We're in 2024. What trend are you thinking is going to disrupt churches in 2024?
I have 2. How many do you have?
I have one. I think it's a big one though.
Okay, I'll do one, then hand it to you, and then do this second one.
Okay. Sounds good.
My first one that I think and I pray will happen is that there'll be more of a focus on evangelism this year with churches. I think that it'll be a wake up call for many churches when they start seeing the numbers and the decline that we talked about last week in churches that are decreasing. And I think it's going to be a real come to Jesus moment where you're like, oh my goodness, we actually have to go get these people and not just expect them to walk into our building. And so It won't just be, street preaching with the megahorn. I'm not saying that. It'll be
Yeah.
actually invading the communities and maybe doing community projects with other religions, even, or being a part of community picnics, or starting a pickleball tournament, or sponsoring things that are doing awesome things for the community and having your name there, having a table there, offering to pray for people at a kids' sports league. It could be a lot of those different things. I think there will be a genuine desire for people to walk around and ask to pray for people. Straight up evangelism, as far as that goes, if you're in communities that have people walking around and able to do that. So I think there'll be much more of a grassroots movement, if you will, to go get
Nice.
people through evangelism tactics that maybe have been lost by some churches that just, hey, come see what we're doing. We're awesome.
Yeah. I hope so. I hope
I hope
what you
so.
just said happens.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay,
It's what
so
we're
so
doing.
my
So
trend,
I'm hoping other people do
I
too.
love
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I love it. All right, so mine is I think worship is about to look very different. We had worship wars in 2010. Maybe it doesn't happen for everyone this year because, worship wars for me happened in 2010, but then didn't happen at some churches till teen. And I'm like, y'all are just now, y'all, y'all just now adding the drum set. Oh, okay. I think for some churches it happens this year. I think for other churches it happens maybe in 2030, which is a nice 20-year cycle. I think worship is about to be way less produced, way more intimate, way less focused on a worship leader. So look at the pendulum, right? The pendulum has swung to where songs now are the title of the song featuring whoever the star is. So it's not elevation worship, it's Gyra featuring all the people who are on Gyra, right? It's not
Yep.
elevation worship does Gyra. It's not elevation worship does names. It's elevation worship featuring Tiffany Hudson. Well, who's Tiffany Hudson? Oh, no, I mean, she's at elevation, but I mean, she's a personality. And this is what everybody's doing. Who does Brandon Lake work for? I don't even know. Bethel, I think, but he's been with Maverick City, Bethel, Elevation Worship. He's winning Grammys. It's unbelievable. So Chris Brown, Brandon Lake, Chandler Moore, these are names. These are names. These are brands. These are people. You're about to see a pendulum swing way to the other side where it's not going to be about that.
Mhm.
And it's going to be about the moment, the room, and it's going to be about creating an authentic place to not watch a name, but to be part of the names singing to the name. That's going to be what it's about. And so I think that shift's going to start happening this year. We're already preparing for it at Revolution, at my church. We are already preparing for it. We are already taking steps to remove spotlights on our acoustic guitar player when he's leading a song. We're taking steps to change our stage and what it looks like to have some massive rectangular stage as opposed to something that would be a little more not watch me and a little more inviting, a little more we're all in this and on the same level. It's difficult to stand on a large platform with all eyes on you and tell everyone that we're the same.
Mhm.
So that needs to change. And I think this year it starts. I think you're going to see churches do it more and more year over year. And I think by 2030, I think we could really be looking at the norm is not to have platform speakers anymore. It's not to have platform worship anymore, but it's more of a collective group effort. And it's all about everyone participating instead of just consuming. So similar to what you just mentioned when it comes to evangelism, that's the outward expression of the church and what happens outside the walls. For me, this is what I believe happens inside.
I like that. Yeah, not just showing up to consume worship, but be a part of just the heart of worship again. Man, yeah, I like that. All right, my
All
last
right, you
one
had one more.
is
Yep.
I got one more prediction for this year. I think there'll be a dichotomy between churches that are on fire and churches that are apostate. And what you see now is that certain denominations have gone to a way where there's so many split because the denomination is like, this isn't what we believe. And there's, well, now we do. And so now you're separating out all these denominations
Yep.
and all this conflict. And I think
Yep.
what you'll see is Just like Asbury last year, you'll have pockets of revival of people that are hungry for more of God, and that will be
Yep.
highlighted. Maybe not as much as Asbury, and maybe more. Who knows? But I think that you'll see pockets of hungry people. But with that, you'll see more of less middle ground of, oh, this church is dying and now they're dead. Now they're just living for self, they're living for pleasure, they look like the world. And there's a difference between them and a spirit filled church that's on fire. I think that the more churches you see that are going to one side or the other, the bigger gap there'll be between Christian culture and what we know culture is going to side with the churches that are apostate. We know the churches, we know the culture. If you start looking like the culture, you're going to get support of the culture. And so the churches that are standing out and are biblical and are
Yep.
on fire, passionate, I think with that will come more persecution, either
Yeah.
socially, social
Yep.
media, and whatever that will look like. I think that will ramp up too. So,
It's real, man. A great 2024 ahead.
yay.
Here
I'm
we go.
excited.
We'll
I
close
want to
this
be on
out,
the
Tim, man. I'm excited
I want to
too.
be on the on fire part. So
Let's do it.
let's do it. So let us know what you thought about these 7. These aren't ours. You can read the article in the show notes, but also the ones we added on. Add your own on. Let us know. You can go to the
Yeah,
Eyes on Jesus podcast community group, on Facebook. You can leave a comment there. You can email us at eyesonjesuspodcast@outlook.com. Let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from our listeners. Here we go, 2024. We do have some great interviews for you coming up. So we're
oh, yeah,
excited
yeah.
about a bunch of people that we have scheduled. And so stay tuned, hit subscribe. We're excited for this year of the podcast and anything content wise, interviews that you can maybe connect us with that you would like to see on the podcast. Let us know that as well. So until
For
next
sure.
time, go with God, grow in discernment.